When you started up your aquarium, one of the very first things you should have bought is some type of way to test the water and make sure everything's okay and you're providing a healthy environment for your fish. But the question becomes, what do you do with the results? Today, I want to go over with you the different scenarios that you may see with test kits, whether it's the master test kits or the test strips like this, whatever testing procedure you're using, what do you do with those results? I want to go over every single individual one and talk about ways that you can remedy that if it's a problem or make adjustments or whatever. But I do need to address the elephant in the room first, and that is, why in the world am I sitting here in my office and not in front of my 360 like I normally am? Well, there's a very good reason. My life has turned completely upside down right now. Lisa and I have the biggest project we've ever been working on ever in the history of our company happening right now. And, I was just like, I just want to sit in the office and do a video real quick. Maybe it's laziness, I don't know, but we're pretty overwhelmed at the moment. And so I just thought this would be a great place. Instead of looking at my aquariums, you can look at my Superman and bobblehead collection. But I do have some really cool news, and that is I'm going to do something that I never thought I would do, but I already did it a couple of years ago, but I'm going to take it to the next level. I'm going to be installing an aquarium in this very room. It's going to be right there. It's going to involve a little bit of controversy if you're somebody that loves old homes like mine is. You may be a little upset with me when you see what I do with this aquarium, but that's okay. It's my house, not yours. I'm going to be putting a 110 gallon, I think it is, 450 liters, whatever that math works out to be. I'm going to be putting that right there in place of that mantle. I can't wait. Videos on that are going to be coming very soon. I don't know what I'm thinking. I swore I was going to never put another aquarium in my house, especially when I have a building full of aquariums, but this is just my life now. I'm actually looking forward to doing that project because of situations like this. I like to be able to just turn the camera on and make a video real quick because I get emails and I'm like, I should make a video about that, whatever the question was that was asked to me. And I happened to get one about test kits recently. So I was like, you know what? I want to make a video. It'd be nice to have a nice aquarium sitting behind me. And believe me, when I tell you that one is going to be really, really nice. I've already got it. I just haven't put it in the room yet because I got to do a little alterations to the room before I put it in, but I'm really excited about that. Anyway, test kits. What do you do? So the main things that you're going to be testing for, whether you're using test strips or a master test kit, are going to be pH, ammonia, nitrate, and nitrite. I want to break those down and talk about what you need to do if your results are not so good in those particular tests. GH and KH are also in there. If you are using these 6-in-1 strips, that's included with these strips, but ammonia is not. You got to buy separate test strips for those. But either way, if you're interested in GH and KH, I'll address that a little bit with pH. So many H's, pH, GH, KH. We'll just lump it all together to try to make it as easy as possible. These also test for chlorine, but we don't need to talk about that. If you have chlorine in your water, get rid of it. Use a water conditioner. It's as simple as that. So what are we going to do when we get our results for pH, GH, and KH? Well, those things are all going to be treated pretty much the exact same way. You're either going to find out that you have very soft water, neutral water, or very hard water. These are very common terms that you're going to hear all the time. Oh, my water's too hard to keep those kind of fish, or my water is too soft to keep those kind of fish. When you do your test for either just pH or all three, and you find out what your water is, how can you adjust that? What can you do? Maybe you want to keep a particular fish, or you want to breed a particular fish, and the breeders that you know or the videos that you've watched have said you need very soft water. And my water is very hard. I know that because of my test results. What do I do in that situation? Well, there's a few ways that you can adjust pH and GH and KH naturally that I prefer over chemicals. There's tons of chemicals out there. There's buffers and things like that that you can put in the water, and those are fine, but you have to use those with every water change. You have to be constantly monitoring. It's totally fine. It works. But if you'd rather set something up where it's a set it and forget it type thing, you're going to want to use more of the things that I'm going to talk about here. And the first one, let's talk first as if your water is super hard, which mine is here. I've got a GH of about 10. I've got a KH that's literally off the charts when you're talking about testing for KH. And my pH is at about 7.8. So my water is very hard here, which works out fine. Most fish are perfectly fine with that. But there are specific fish that if I wanted to breed them, I would want to bring that down. How would I do it? There's a couple of very easy ways. One of the first ways would be, I am very blessed. I have a relationship with a company that sent me an RO system, reverse osmosis system, which I have hooked up in the fish house, and it puts RO water into barrels, 55-gallon drums. I did videos all about that back in the day. I very, very rarely use that system anymore because I'm not doing saltwater anymore. But anyway, that's a conversation for another day. Using RO water is a way that you can dramatically lower your pH. In fact, you might lower it too much, your pH and your hardness, because with RO water, it is like purified. It's removing that mineral content. It is drastically softening the water. And so it can actually be too much. And so what a lot of people do is when they have really hard water like I do, they mix in RO water with it. So if you're going to do like a 40% water change, when you put your water back in, you put 20% tap water, 20% RO water. That's an easy way to do it, but an RO system is expensive and you have to have somewhere to store that RO water. So if you can't do that, I completely understand it. There is another way, which is not as common. I mean, a lot of people do it, but it's not the easiest way out there. And that would be to incorporate something like a peat moss in your aquarium. Now, you're not going to put peat moss just in your aquarium. That would be ridiculous. It would make your aquarium really dirty and stuff would be floating all over the place. It's not very appealing to do that. So what most people do is use them in their filters. They use it almost like a biomedia in their filters. It's not a biomedia, but you understand what I'm saying. You could put it like in a bag in the flow of your aquarium or of your filter, and it will flow through that. And peat moss is a great way to lower that. Again, not many people do that anymore unless they have a sump or something like that. So another way that is much easier, it's not going to be as drastic, but is to incorporate a lot of driftwood. Driftwood will soften your water slightly. It releases those tannins, which can be very beneficial if you're trying to soften your water. Driftwood and peat moss used to be the old school way of doing this before RO systems were even like easily attainable. Like they were outrageously expensive and you had to have them filtering your water for your entire house and all that kind of stuff. You don't need that anymore. They sell smaller systems like I have that you can install in your garage or in your laundry room and just have it running. Still cost you a couple $100, but it wasn't like that back in the day. You had to invest big money to get RO water back in the day. At least that's all I knew. I don't know. To me, whatever's going on with me personally, I feel like is everywhere. So, but it might just be that I just wasn't aware that RO systems were out there, but I didn't know anybody that had an RO system. So I don't know. What am I even trying to say? They were not as easily accessible then. They are now, if you have the money to do that. And to be honest with you, if you're brand new to this and you're just getting started, I wouldn't even fool with all that. If you're a saltwater person, okay, it's pretty much mandatory then. But if you're getting into freshwater fish keeping and you want to do this for the love of having live animals and keeping them, and they're beautiful and all of that, and that's a lot of fun, I wouldn't even worry about any of this. It's only when you're keeping very specific fish that require water parameters to be very, very soft in order to breed them. That's when I would start to go with adjusting them these ways. But, you know, I'm not into that anymore. That's just not my thing. I would rather have it easy. And if I have to drastically alter my water parameters like that, I'm just not going to breed that fish. But what about the opposite scenario? What if you find out that your water is very, very soft and you want to harden it up because you want to breed a specific type of Tanganyikan cichlid or something like that? Well, there are a few things, again, that you can do to make it very simple and you never really even have to touch it again. Things like a crushed coral substrate are great. That's everybody's go-to thing to harden up their water, is to use crushed coral. Some will use it as a substrate. Others will take it, put it in a bag, and again, put it in the filter. If you have a canister filter, you can put it right there in your media basket. Sump, you can put it wherever you want. A hang on the back filter, again, you can put it in the flow of the water, and you can absolutely buffer your pH that way. It's very, very simple to do. I've done it many times. In fact, Lisa does it now with some of her snail tanks. She just puts it down as a substrate. It looks cool and it hardens the water, which we don't even really need to do here because our water is so hard. But I don't ask questions. She does what she wants to do, and that's that. She thinks it's necessary. I'm not going to argue with her. So that's an easy way to do it. The other ways would be natural rocks will help with that hardening up a little bit. You really got to put a lot of rocks in there. If you go and you grab a rock and you put it in the corner of your tank, that's probably not going to really mess with things all that much. But if you put a bunch of rocks in there, it can adjust and make your water a little bit harder. But again, I can't state this enough. If you're just a hobbyist, you like to keep fish because they're beautiful and they have personalities and it's fun to watch them eat, I wouldn't even mess with any of these things. Almost all fish that we keep in this hobby will adapt perfectly fine to your water hardness. If you do want to keep those, though, that are very picky and they demand certain water hardness, or you're going to get into wild caught fish and all that kind of stuff, you need to make these adjustments. I would do it with the permanent adjustments like the substrates and things like that, the crushed coral, driftwood, if you need to lower it, stuff like that's what I would do rather than using buffers and all of that. Again, the buffers work, but you got to pay a lot more attention to it. I'd rather set it and forget it. I hope I haven't confused you too much about water hardness. I just can't stress it enough. If you don't want to worry about it, then just don't try breeding specific fish. If you find out that that fish requires your pH to be at 6.4 and your hardness is, you can't even read it, it's so low, just stay away from those. Keep your life so much easier. Now, what about the enemy of every fish keeper known to man, ammonia? What if you have ammonia present in your aquarium? What are you going to do? Well, the first thing that I want to tell you is 0 ammonia is the only acceptable number. I've gotten emails from people before that have said, I always have a little bit of ammonia in my tank. No, that's not okay. You cannot live with that. You absolutely must get rid of that ammonia. And it's really not that difficult to do. No ammonia is good ammonia. So understand that. Even if you're using the API kit or the Fritz Master Test kit and your water is just the littlest hint of green in your ammonia test, alarm bells are going off. You have to address that issue, because if you don't, it's going to progressively get worse and your fish will die. I can guarantee you they will if you don't do something to address it. Am I trying to scare you? Yes, because we need to be scared of ammonia. It is the number one nemesis of every single fish keeper. So if you find that ammonia is present in your aquarium, what are you going to do? Well, there is the first thing I would do, And then there's the second thing I would do. The first thing is I would treat the aquarium with Fritz Complete. This is a water conditioner that's meant to remove chlorine, chloramine, heavy metals, and detoxify ammonia. It's not going to get rid of it. I want to be very clear. But what it'll do is make that ammonia tolerable to the fish while you address the issue. That's it. It is just putting a Band-Aid on it. It's not fixing the problem. It's just giving you time to be able to address the issue. And then the second thing that I would do is correct whatever it is that's causing the ammonia spike to begin with. And the only way to know that is to understand the aquarium cycle. I'm not going to go into it in this video because I've done it 374,292 times. That's how many times it was last time I counted. How many times I've talked about the ammonia cycle or the nitrogen cycle on this channel. More times than I can count. But I've got one video for you that will sum it up very easily. It's probably the video I am most proud of on this channel. I'll put a card up in the corner for it. It's called the most important video ever made about aquariums, or the most important aquarium video ever made. I'm not sure. You'd think I would know by now, but watch that video, familiarize yourself with the cycle. It sounds intimidating. It sounds like something that should have been taught in science class. I promise it's very simple once you understand it. It's not hard at all. You need to understand what's causing that ammonia to begin with. The most common things would be things like overfeeding, a lack of maintenance, too many fish in the aquarium. All of those things can contribute to ammonia being present. If ammonia is there, your aquarium is not cycled, or your cycle is crashing, which means you're going to have a catastrophe on your hands. You don't have a choice. You have to address this, and you're not going to know what to do unless you know what the cycle is. So watch that video that I just linked up there in the corner. Watch that, familiarize yourself with it. It's not hard. And then address whatever issue is causing the ammonia. You're going to probably have to make some changes to your routine. You're not doing enough maintenance. You're feeding too much. Feeding is the most fun part we have in this hobby, right? You're going to have to cut back on something to get that ammonia under control. You have to do it. Don't rely on chemicals. Chemicals are just a Band-Aid. Fix the ammonia issue, and then we can move on. If you have any ammonia present whatsoever, you're asking for problems. Now, nitrite. This one's going to be tough. This one, I mean, get ready, because the science behind this is so complicated, and it's just so difficult to be able to explain what to do with nitrite. I hope I don't just confuse the hell out of you and make you want to quit this hobby. It's so hard. Do exactly the same things that you would do if ammonia is present. It's the exact same things that would cause nitrite to spike in your aquarium. Everything is exactly the same as ammonia. So whatever it is that you learn to address ammonia, do the exact same thing to address nitrite. Either one of them present in your aquarium is a fish killer. Either one of them present in your aquarium should set off the same alarm bells. Do not dilly-dally. Treat with Fritz Complete to get your fish through it, but then address the issue exactly the same way you would with ammonia. Now, nitrate is the next one. And I got to be honest with you. I got to tell you a little funny story about me when I was really young and dumb. I thought nitrate was as bad as nitrite and ammonia. I didn't learn it until like 6 months ago that it wasn't as bad. I'm joking. No, I'm talking about when I was like 20 and I didn't understand the nitrogen cycle, because nobody did back then unless you were a total nerd. I thought anything, whether I knew pH wasn't bad, but if you had ammonia, nitrite, or nitrate in your aquarium, all your fish were going to die. Of course, I've learned since then that it's not as bad. However, it can be. The mere presence of nitrate is not going to be sending off the alarm bells like ammonia and nitrite are, but it is if it gets too far out of control. What I mean is Nitrate being in your aquarium is a positive thing because that means the cycle's doing what it's supposed to do. It's converting that ammonia and nitrite into nitrate. That's good. We're on the right track. Nitrates being present is good, but if it goes too high, then we are going to want to do our maintenance to bring them back down to normal levels again. What are normal levels again? I like to keep them around 20 to 30. When we get to 40 parts per million, that's when it looks like, okay, we need to get off our butts and start doing some work here. We need to do some maintenance. We need to get this back down to that 20 to 30. I'm not freaking out if I do a test and I find that my parts per million of nitrate is at like 30. I'm not like, oh my God, the world is going to end. No, but I do want to keep an eye on it and make sure it doesn't go out of control, because once it goes over that 40, that's when things are going to start to deteriorate. And if they get too high, it can crash. Ammonia and nitrite can take over and everything can still die. So nitrate is important. It's not as immediate of a killer as ammonia and nitrite are, but having it in the tank is normal and we want that. We just don't want it too far out of control. Here I go again. I hope I'm not confusing the hell out of you. So what are we going to do when we find out that our nitrate is there at like 40, it's getting up there to 50. It's starting to get up there pretty high. How are we going to bring that back down to the levels that are safe? Well, there's a few different ways, but the first thing is water changes. Doing a nice large water change. I can remember when water changes you used to be afraid of because you thought it was shocking to the fish and all that. No, they love it. Clean water is the best medicine for fish. There's not a fish out there that's going to complain about doing a water change. Doing a nice big one is going to dilute that nitrate and bring it back down to that safe level. And in a lot of cases, like cichlid tanks, African cichlid tanks, things like that, you have no other choice because you can't use the second method of lowering nitrates because they will just wreck everything. So you have no choice. You have to go in there and do water changes to bring those nitrates back down again. And then document everything. Learn how much water you had to change to get your level back down to the 20 that you wanted. And then also, how long did it take for it to get elevated again? Document all of these things so that you can set up a plan where you'll know, okay, because I have this 75-gallon tank with 26 mbunas in it, I know that after a week, my nitrates are too high and I need to do a 50% water change to bring it back down again. Every African cichlid keeper knows this. Water changes are just part of the deal, but understanding when and how much of a water change to do is something that you have to figure out again with your test kit, monitor everything and come up with a routine. Again, some fish, you don't have a choice. If you decide you're going to keep Oscars, you have no choice but to do water changes because you can't use the second method of resolving nitrates, which is live plants. Live plants feed off of nitrates. It's like fertilizer to them. They thrive on nitrates. So because of that, they're going to eat up a lot of those nitrates and they're going to make your maintenance a lot less. You're going to have to do water changes less frequently because the plants are going to consume those nitrates. But here's the thing. If you have a 55-gallon aquarium with a bunch of tetras and barbs in it, and your nitrate is through the roof, don't go buy a plant and put it in there and think that's going to correct the problem, because it's not. You need a lot of plants in there that are feeding off of that nitrate to keep it under control, not fix a problem. I hope that makes sense. If when you find that nitrate is high and you don't have any plants and you want to use plants to correct that issue, sure, go buy a bunch of them, put them in there, but don't consider the problem to be solved. You need to do that water change. You need to dilute that water to get that nitrate back down to the safe levels, add your plants, and then the plants are going to start working with you to resolve those nitrates in the future, but they're not going to correct the issue overnight. I hope that makes sense. I think I've said that like 10 times now. But plants are a great way to control nitrates. In fact, there's a lot of people out there that would tell you you don't even have to do any water changes at all when you have a lot of live plants in your aquarium. I'm not going to argue with those people. It can be done that way. But for newer fish keepers, people just getting into this, don't go thinking you're not going to have to do any maintenance because you have plants in there. The plants are going to help you to do less maintenance, but we need to get there first. And just sticking a plant in there doesn't correct the issue. You need a lot of them. I'm not saying you have to start a nursery and have all the plants. I'm not saying that. But one Rotala plant sitting in the corner of your tank is not going to correct your nitrates that are through the roof. It's going to help you to control them in the future. I don't know. I don't know what else to say about it other than just repeating the same thing over and over. So my overall recommendation for your test results are do things that are natural to control the things that you can control, like pH and nitrates. Live plants are a great way to do it. If you're keeping fish that destroy plants, I'm sorry, that's not an option for you. But if you're keeping community fish or plant safe cichlids and things like that, live plants are a great way to do it. I also know a guy that could sell those plants to you. He sells a lot of plants and they're really good people. They live in North Carolina. Their name's John and Lisa. They're good folks. They would love to send you plants to help you control nitrates in the future. pH and GH and KH, using natural products to adjust that one way or the other is my preferred way. Instead of using chemicals, the chemicals work, but I feel like, it's just easier to set it and forget it and not have to monitor it constantly, because at the end of the day, big, massive swings up and down of pH is a problem. So we want to keep things more balanced. Using natural products can help that to keep it consistent and not constantly going up and down. Ammonia, nitrite, get rid of them. Whatever it is that's causing those, you're going to have to do a little diagnosing of the problem yourself. Watch that video. It'll teach you what to look for if you have ammonia and nitrite problems. Treat them both the same. One isn't worse than the other. They're both fish killers. Get them under control. I hope all of that makes sense, and I hope all of that helps you out. I know I've been kind of all over the place. You have to forgive me. My mind is just exploding right now because we've got so much going on here. I'm doing my best to try to give you the best information possible. I hope it helps. I hope you have a better understanding now of what to do with those test results. And there you go. Hey, listen, you might not know this. I have a website. I just talked about it earlier. KeepFishkeeping.com. We sell live plants and all those other things. If you're going to be buying these things already, that's a great place to do it. Thanks so much for watching. Bye.